Morning, everyone. We'll be starting in just a minute or so. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Ingram Micro webinar series on Teams practice building. This is the second in the series of 3 held every Wednesday at this time. My name is George Farrer, and I'm the Business Development Manager for the Modern Workplace practice at Ingram Micro based in Sydney. The webinar is running on Microsoft Teams, live events, and this session is being recorded. This recording will be available and sent to everyone that's registered after the third event next week. We'll be taking questions, time permitting, which you can type into the Q&A panel. Today is Wednesday, May the 19th, and we're hosting this webinar from the Ingram Micro Sydney office in one of our Teams meeting rooms. The speakers for today, we have 3 vendor partners presenting today. Adrian Miller is from Using Technology Better, a New Zealand-based partner who provides training and adoption services for Microsoft Teams. Following Adrian, Jordan Zhu, the distribution manager for Jabra from Ingram Micro, will present on the very cool Jabra certified Microsoft handsets. And finally, we have Sharon Lee and Pablo Galan from BitTitan. Pablo will present, and he's the technical sales specialist from BitTitan, who will present and demo migration services related to Microsoft Teams. So Adrian, it's over to you. I'd like to introduce Adrian Miller from Using Technology Better to begin his presentation. Thanks, Adrian.
Excellent. Thank you, George. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's great that you are here. Just to let you know what we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about that whole idea of Teams and how that works and getting people along the journey on using Teams really well. So I'm going to share a screen. I'm going to jump in and out of a live demo, as well as just sharing some stuff from just a slide deck. So give me a tick as I flick between screens, and we'll get rocking in just a sec. Here we go. I've just kind of started, I've got multiple screens running here, so if I'm looking all over the place, it's not because I'm slightly distracted, it's just because I've got a whole lot of things going. So probably one of the big things for us at UTB with Using Technology Better is the whole idea that when we start talking to clients and people, whether it's in the EDU space or the business space, and we start talking about Microsoft Teams, a lot of people kind of got this probably this legacy idea that Microsoft is just a platform that's got a few bits and pieces in it. It's got SharePoint, which is pretty cool. It's got some mechanics in there that make things work nicely for people. But at the end of the day, it's just a beast that kind of does, a bit of PowerPoint, bit of Word, maybe Excel if you're that kind of get. But anything like the Teams area, just really got labelled as a spot where you could communicate and maybe do a call instead of using something like Zoom or Slack. So it's kind of one of those things that appeared there. But we kind of figure that it's a lot better than that. And so what we do is we kind of present that to people. But before we jump into that, let's have a look at who we are as a team. So UTB is a technology team that's based in Australia and New Zealand, mainly for our trainers, but we have a whole admin team that runs with us out of the Philippines. And we really are passionate about providing training for people that isn't boring, that is more value than the suites that you have on your table. It brings people along on a learning journey, so when they go back to their workplace, they feel empowered to actually make a difference. So that's kind of what we're about. We work in the business sector, the government sector, and education. And we've got kind of 3 types of ways that we deliver. We've got in-person, which is face-to-face. We've got online live, which is exactly what we're doing here in the whole webinar space, where we deliver a lot of stuff on webinar. And also we've developed an online platform, which is Learn on Demand, so people can tap into what they need when they need it. And basically for us, we've got 22 staff. Actually, we've got 23 staff now. We have a network of subcontractors. We're in 3 countries and we work across 5 time zones. So we're kind of spread geographically, but we kind of work really, really well together. And we work in this collaborative online space all the time. So when we talk to people about Teams and where that sits and how that works with us, is the whole idea that Teams is the hub that brings everything together inside the Microsoft space, plus external applications that you can run too. So anything web-based will run inside Teams. And then also anything that you want to use in terms of applications, more applications are getting run to sit inside that Teams space. So it's not just a video platform and it's not just a chat platform. Now with Skype being pulled off the radar really soon, then it's going to become the major video platform for Microsoft. So people are going to land in there. But what they don't realize is the other things that are there. So these are some of the apps that are offered in the Microsoft world. And these all integrate beautifully inside Teams. So it means that your collaboration, you're working together, your file storage, your file structure, all those kind of things are managed for you really easily, and that whole collaboration works really well. If we talk about the modern workplace now, the modern workplace has changed, especially with COVID. COVID's kind of spun us a little bit to give us this kind of idea about working collaboratively, working asynchronously. So how do we do that? Well, Teams gives us the capacity to work in a collaborative world, manages our communication, incorporates the third-party apps that we might work with. And then by looking at the channels and the files that you manage, then that gives us a clarity in terms of communication and a clarity in terms of organization and a clarity in terms of the versions of documents or versions of sessions that we're working on all in one spot. The other thing that's sitting inside this space is the whole lot of automations that work in here. And using Power Automate, you can set up Teams to do a whole lot of stuff automatically for you. I set up one this morning, in fact, to let me know when someone's actually messaged me to give me a notification somewhere else. So it automatically does that for me. But some of the other things that we can do with Power Automate and also the bots inside Microsoft Teams gives you power to be able to do a whole stack of stuff that you probably can't do easily now. We'll touch on some of them as we go through, but we're not going to be able to get to everything because normally this is more than a 30-minute presentation. Anyway, so inside Microsoft Teams, when we start looking about the layout of it, people kind of get a little bit confused because there are spaces in it that you think, oh, what part belongs to me? What part belongs to other people? And what part do people see? What part can I tailor and what part can I actually muck around with? So we have this kind of screenshot here, but in a tick, I'm going to jump into a demo and show you stuff a bit better. But on the left-hand side of your Teams window is a left-hand bar, and in that left-hand bar has icons. And on the desktop version of Teams, you can order the way you want those icons to be. So you can move them around so you actually have whichever ones you want at the top. So I keep the activity bell at the top, and then I have my chat, and I have my Teams, and then my other ones are mixed around because I just have customized it a little bit. But I can't show you that today because I'm going to show you a demo in a web version. So everything on the left-hand side is yours. The next bit over tells you where your teams are, and that is how you can organize your teams. And I'll show you a couple of tricks with that because there's a couple of ways you can make it work a bit better. You've got chat, which is chat between you and other people. And then on the right-hand side is the space that everyone gets to play in and everyone gets to see. So you've got your communication area where you do the, you can actually post to people inside channels. And also then you've got your access to your files in this area, and also you've got your access to your profile settings as well. So let's just get across to here, beautiful. So when we come down to the whole idea of communicating inside Teams, and we'll do a demo in just a smidge as well, there's a couple of ways in which we can do that. Now, the thing that makes Teams jump off of the radar, but basically out of what email is like, is that communication is really, really fluid. So what we find is that when we start working with people, they are very entrenched in using email, and email becomes that communication tool. And then you get these threaded conversations, which if you're in one of those for email, sometimes it takes a while to find out what's going on. But also inside that, the whole efficiency of being able to quickly scan through something and respond really quickly like you would in an office is kind of lost in that email world because you've got your to and your from. Sometimes you've got to put a statement in there, and you're a bit more formal with the way it works. But inside a conversation, inside Teams, you can have this very fluid thing happening, which you can jump in, you can add comments, you can add GIFs to make it a bit more fun, you can add bits and pieces in there, but it's a fluid conversation that you can actually participate in really, really well. So how does this look like for you, and what can you make a post and conversation look like really quickly? So I'm going to jump out of this window and show you a bit of a live demo. So I'm going to jump into another account. So give me a tick as I do that. I just got to find my right account here. I'll stop sharing the screen and come and grab sharing another screen. So we can do that one, and let me come down here. 1 second caller. There we go. That's better. So now let me come back to here. And I'll share the screen here now. Here we go. Beautiful. Cool. So here I've got a bit of a demo account. And this demo account, I'll blow it up a bit bigger so you can see it. There we go, that's great. All right, so what we normally do when we do a presentation at UTB, we very rarely talk to a slide deck. Often my slide decks have about 3 slides in them, which some people find a bit frustrating because they want to talk to a slide deck, but we would rather do a demo to show how things work. So before we were chatting a little bit about our the areas inside the Teams environment. The left-hand side down here is the space that I can see, and anytime there is a red dot next to it, it means there's something there for me, and if there's a number next to it, it means I've been mentioned somewhere in a conversation. So I've actually been addressed in that conversation. So if you have a look on the right-hand side, over in here, you can see that I've got Adrian Francis here mentioned from Samantha, and that's pinged me, and I've got a little @ symbol over here, and up here it tells me that it's there as well. Anything down this bit here, where I've got an exclamation mark or a 1 next to it, means there are things in here that actually rely or respond to me. So if I click on the core value one, you'll see in there that there's a core value here for me, being shouted out, sitting in here for Adrian Francis, cleaning all my windows last time we visited. Yep, going beyond. That's just fantastic. So that's me. Sam's actually mentioned me, which is just terrific. So any mentions that you get notified, and anything down this side here lets you know that there's been something going on. So a couple of tips from us. So I'm just going to give you a couple of tips about how I would be working in this team space just to make my life easier. Now at UTB, we've basically banned internal emails. So we basically never email each other internally. All our emails are coming from external clients and people that we're working with. So all our internal stuff is managed via Teams, which means we have a lot of chat. So between ourselves last year, when we were a bit smaller, we were doing about 16,000 chats a week. And people go, oh my goodness, how do you track what's going on? How do you know what's going on? You're going to miss something. Let me show you this. Up the top here, this little search bar is a search bar which enables you to be able to search for anything inside Teams. It's absolutely sensational, but there's a whole lot of commands built into this search bar. So if I just go / and type in mentions, probably not going to pick anyone because I've just kind of cleared them all out. There we go, beautiful. It picks up all the ones that I've been mentioned in, so I can quickly look down here to see if there's something I need to pay attention to. So it goes through, finds my mentions and drops them in there as well, which is just wonderful. Now, what I can do here, I can take this a bit further. It's like searching on steroids. Over here, I've now got the ability to filter, and in that filter, I can filter up and down, and then I can also get rid of that one in here as well. So I might just, from Samantha, oh, they're all going to come up from Samantha. So if I can type in someone else's word name, that'll all appear there as well and filter them out for me. But let's pretend that this one here is really important, and I need to remember this. And so I don't want to have to keep on going back into my mentions all the time to be able to find something. So how do I refine this so I can find something? Well, these 3 dots, just remember that anything in the Microsoft world, 3 dots takes you somewhere else. It's an adventure. It's like a breadcrumb. You eat the first one, go to the second one, go to the third one. You keep on going down. So if I click on these 3 dots, I can mark it as unread, which means that it will go back into my feed and I've got to come back and address it. So I can quickly go through like that, which is okay. But what I end up happening, let's come back into here. What end up happening is that I end up having things that have been read, then that I've marked as unread, and then I can't quite work out the way in which I should actually respond. How do I save it? Because if I mark it as read and then I read it and then mark it as unread, in my brain it's going, oh, wait a sec, which of these messages have I read, but I've marked them as unread so I can come back to it? Which ones have I marked as that I haven't read? And then sometimes you get confused about what's going on and your brain gets kind of overloaded. If you're like me, please, if you're not like me, just ignore this bit, but my working RAM is getting smaller and smaller inside my brain, and to remember which things I've read and not read and use that as a marking mechanism for a to-do list is really, really tricky. So what I can do is I can come out to here, in my conversations here, these little kind of quick responses appear on the right-hand side. There's 3 dots there. I can come and save that message. And what that does is it just saves the message for me and puts it somewhere else. And I'll show you where to find it in just a smidge. So I tend to get up in the morning because I'm New Zealander guy, get up before us. And I come through and I read all my notes and my messages, see what's going on. I can scroll through, and if there's something I've got to remember, I'll just come in here and go, oh, great, okay, let me just put that as a saved message, and I can save those messages as well. To find my saved messages, guess what? We're going to come up to the search bar again, go / and look under saved, and then all my saved messages will appear inside here. And so this is kind of like my to-do list now. Oh, Paddy, we got that, we got the birthday thing. So once I've read it, I can click that one off. I can click that one up there, and I can go through and use that as my to-do list to find something. So that's one little tip in terms of those conversations. If I want a conversation to jump out, I've got 3 more things before we jump to the next bit. So buckle up. So let's come to my my general channel in here. I want to do a new conversation. If I go, hi everyone, and just post that, it just kind of sits in the channel. It doesn't look that fantastic, and it doesn't jump out and let people know what's going on. So I can do a couple of things. Let me come down and do a new conversation. Down the bottom of my window, I've got the magic little formatting tab. So if I hit that, it opens up a window. It means I can add formatting to my conversation, to my post. Because remember, we're talking about collaboration, communication, keeping those things clear. So inside here, I can add a subject and say Cake Day. I can make it important. I can add a picture of a cake. Let's just go cake. Oh, fantastic, let's add that in there. And then I can post it in multiple channels. So I can post it to the general channel, but also I want to post it to the meeting channel because that's really important. I want to post it to the random fun channel because that's really important. But also I can pick any other team I'm a member of and post that as well. Up here I can see what's going on. Anyone can reply. If I go post, that's now going to jump out and go to all those channels automatically. So one input, multiple outputs, so everyone can hear about it. But if I want to make it jump out a little bit more than this, I can come into here again, change this from new conversation to announcement, and I'll do Cake Day. No, I'll go fire drill because that's probably a bit more important. Add a fire drill. I can change the color. I can make it important. Fire drill today. Run when you. And then I can also post that to multiple channels, and I can also only let moderators and myself reply if I want to. So I'm going to leave it like that. But when I go post to that, it now pops it out like this, and you can see the banner and the heading there. Now you might go, well, what's the point of using that formatting tab? Why can't I just use a conversation like this, where I just come and reply inside a conversation and stuff like that? Once you get a big long conversation, they all get squished up. And sometimes you lose the top part of that conversation. So you can't quite see what's going on in the conversation. If I use this formatting tab like this and have a header up there, even though it collapses all the posts, the main header there and the main thread or kind of the theme of that conversation in that thread is kept at the top, so you can always see what it is. So that blurb of text like this cake will always be there, so people can see what's going on and they can reply underneath it. So that's one way of giving that information out. Now, if you're in a big company and you say there's a cake day, everyone respond if you've seen this note. As soon as people start writing their names down here, that thread gets really big. And when the thread is really, really big, what it means is that people can get lost about what's going on. And for you, the organizer of Cake Day, if you want to make sure everyone's going to bring a cake, you don't want to scroll down through all those names there because it blows out your window quite big. to be able to find out who's responded. So what we say is, up here we've got some quick responses. Now in these quick responses, what happens is I can give a thumbs up, I can give a smiley face, I can give an angry face, I can give a love heart. But in here we say that if we give a thumbs up, that means that we've read the post and we understand what we need to do. So it's like just kind of verifying that we've seen it and we know what we're going to do. So then me as the organizer, all I need to do is hover over this now, and you see the names of all the people who've responded to it, so I can really quickly see what's going on. So that's that kind of area there. Right, now, knowing that time is going to be fleeting and fast, let's have a look at the next couple of things, really quick little hints about what to do in terms of using Teams as well. Up the top right-hand side here, there is a picture of you or your person or your identity. If you click on that, you can come in here and change a couple of things around. You can change whether you're going to be available, busy, or your status in terms of being there, and you can actually put a timer on it. So if you're going to be do not disturb and want to be working and focused on something, you can put a duration of an hour, and then no one will be able to disturb you for an hour, and then automatically it goes back to available. It's a really good way of working. You can also leave a status message saying, I'm really deep in some work at the moment, please don't disturb me, so people know what's going on so they don't kind of get annoyed if you're not responding. But a couple of things to do with Microsoft Teams is that under the settings here, this is where all your information around about your notifications live. So I'm going to spend about 20 seconds in here. So if you keep on getting notifications and things being popped up all the time to you, then you might want to be going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this? How can I stop that off? The notifications in here, you can come down here and customize them and turn them off. By default, there's some ones on here that I would turn off, because anytime a notification hits you, you're going to get distracted from that workflow. So just be aware of that, is that workflow will slow down when you get a notification. So in here, I would come in here and turn off your emails. You don't want to get an email every time you miss a post. And then down here, you can edit when people mention you and customize and things like that as well, so that the efficiency for you is not distracted by a pop-up coming up all the time. And also you control who actually gets through to you at any time, which is a nice way of being able to manage that as well. Now let me just jump out of this, and I'm going to keep this window going and jump back into my presentation and jump over to here and talk about channels and tabs for just a second. Let me blow this up big.
Just before you go, I've got a quick question from the chat. Can we integrate third-party messengers to MS Teams, such as Cisco WebEx and others?
Oh, that's a superb question. I'd have to look into that, George. I think you can, because I've read it somewhere that you can integrate other third parties into there. If there's a web-based application that you're using for your messaging, yeah, not a problem. Not a problem.
Yeah, I think we can get back to the guys about that one.
Yep, cool. So I want to chat really quickly about channels and what they do, and then tabs. So channels and tabs are the two little things I want to show you in this spot. So a channel is your area in which you communicate. So we kind of think of channels as those areas that you might be working in that have a certain theme that those people need to be working on. Now just remember that in a team, everyone inside a team gets to be able to see what's going on. But a channel should kind of focus people where to go to. So if you look at this one here, we've got a channel called company announcements. So if you need to put something into there about an updated thing that's coming in for the general company to be able to see, that will go into company announcements. You'll also see that we've got other channels down here that have got a little padlock on them. And that means that only those people in those areas can see what's going on inside that channel. So if I put in Fred, Brian, and Belinda into the executive management team, they're the only ones that can see the chat. They're the only ones that can access the files inside that channel. They're a member of the entire team, but they, kind of privileged access to that channel. No one else can see it. So we kind of say, think about your channel structure, because if a channel is clear, people are going to go there. And if you want to only keep it open for a few people, you can do that, because what that allows you to do, really, really simply, is that you don't have to have hundreds of teams. You can have one team with lots of channels, but some of them are private, so that only people that need to see them, and only people that can access them can access them. The next thing over is the tabs. Now, the tabs across the top of a page enable you to customize what people see and what people open up. So you can see in this one here, I've got a post tab, a files, I've got some meeting notes, I might have a conference plan that I've added in there, but I can add in any of these applications to the top of the channel. So if people click on it, it takes them straight to that application. That conference plan there is a Word document. They click on the Word document, it opens up inside Teams, and automatically they have access to the Word document so they can see it. So it makes that clarity of communication, clarity of where to find things even easier. And if you organize your channels in a way that makes sense, then people can find stuff super quickly and super easily. On the back of that is you've got the ability to manage your files. So how do the file things work inside Teams? Now, it's really important for people to understand how Teams works. So Teams is a really nice front end to SharePoint, because SharePoint manages all the permissions and the sharing and the file locations and the file structure, all those kind of things in the background. And sometimes that can get quite overwhelming for people. But every time you build a new Microsoft team, in the background, Microsoft builds a SharePoint site. Now that SharePoint site then manages all the permissions and then manages all the folders. If you've got OneDrive, you manage OneDrive and you manage the permissions and you manage the folders at your level. But from Teams, it's done at a team level. So all those permissions are done in the background. You can actually jump, if you want to, you can jump into the back end of Teams, jump into SharePoint. You can modify all the settings to do with anything so that all your files and folders can be shared through to different teams. But because SharePoint manages it, it makes it really super easy. So for one client that we've worked with, we've set up a SharePoint site that has all their school curriculum in it. And then that just points to about 4 different teams. So the teams can access all the files. They're stored in one central location. The permissions are taken care of, and you don't worry about having the same 15 versions of the same document because it's all managed through SharePoint and everyone can find it really super easily and super quickly. That whole idea of setting up your file structure and the way it sits in the background is one of those things you sit down with a conversation with a person and you map out what it's going to look like before you jump in too deep. Same with the whole thing with Teams and the way in which you set your structure up inside Teams is that you need to talk that through a lot before you jump in, because if you jump in too early, you could actually have a bit of a mess sitting inside there. So let me just show you one super tip that I really like inside Teams, and then I'm going to take you to our last kind of slide because I know I'm running out of time. So let me just jump back into my demo team again, which is going to be hanging in behind here. Here we go. Beautiful. So our demo team sits inside here. It's really quite sweet and pretty. If I come to inside here and I want to organize a meeting, I can come into my calendar from here. I'll load my calendar up in a tick. If I just click on something like that, then I can organize a meeting and I can choose what channel I'm going to pop that meeting into so it'll appear in that channel. It'll then also get populated into my calendar. Now, if you're operating completely in Outlook, you can sync between your calendars here and your Outlook calendars and therefore use your scheduling assistant to build out what you need to make this work. So you can actually do a scheduling assistant, find out when people are free, book in a meeting, add in the required attendees, boom, away you go, it's ready to rock and roll. Now, when you set up a meeting like this, what Teams does in the background, it enables you to record your meeting. It also enables you to have live not live dictation, live transcripting happening so that when anyone speaks, the transcript comes up underneath their name. It will also save that transcript inside the meeting and also give you an ability to have meeting notes, which you can type into at the same time. Now, what this does is pretty cool, because then whenever you have a meeting from then on in, you can open up your meeting notes, your transcript of what you've said is there, your video of what you said is there, and any notes you've taken are there as well. So if you have another meeting, it just adds onto the back of it because it follows that meeting inside the channel. So automatically you've got a transcript of what's going on. You've got efficiency of communication because someone may not be there, but they can come in and they can watch the video, they can see the transcript, they can see all the notes being taken there, and it's an active live asynchronous meeting module that works really easily inside Teams. It's superb. You can also translate as well inside Teams. You can have that working in the background. So you might be presenting to someone else and the transcript to them may be in their language compared to yours. And that transcription, I tried it out the other day with a client. in China, and it worked unbelievably well. They were going, I can't believe how well this is actually working. I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So those kind of things are built into Teams automatically. The other thing that's being brought in as well, I'll stop sharing this screen here and jump back to my face. Oops, jump back to my face before I go to my last slide, is that the integration between Outlook and Teams is now there. So if you open up a calendar invite in Teams, you can actually, in Outlook, sorry, you can send it straight to Teams, so it becomes a Teams meeting. Also, if you have an email, you can forward that to a channel inside Teams. So now we've gone from we've got this communication package over here, which is Outlook, this communication package over here, which is like in Teams or Skype, and over here we've got OneDrive that's got some of our files in it, to over here that we've got some stuff inside SharePoint. How the heck do we get all of these to mix? Well, Teams brings it in all together, so you can pick between them really, really easily and really super quick. So it means that fluidity of communication, the clarity of where you're working from is now even better than it was before, and the ease of people to be able to jump in here and use it is right there as well. So I'll just jump into my last slide and then see if we've got any questions as well. Let me jump into this one here. That's cool. And let me just drag it up to there and just go play from here would be really good. I'm going to play from the start. I don't want it to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to go to my current slide. I'll just go real quick. So as we're finishing up, hopefully today's given you a little bit of a taste of what we do. Now, it has been like a Contiki tour. We've jumped on the bus. We've gone through 16 countries in 25 minutes. But often in a session, we will do a lot more hands-on. But in a webinar like this, we just haven't got that capacity. So if you want to kind of look at more training like this for you and your clients, if you want to go to our partner pack, which is just using that short URL there, utb.fyi partner intro, that'll give you a whole information about how we can do with our partners. If you want to book a call and have a chat to us, we'd love to jump on a call with you and have a chat about how we can actually take this further with you and your clients. utb.fyi/partners, or even if you've got a QR code reader, just quickly take a snap of that and use that and contact us. We'd really like to engage with you to be able to help more people. Our goal is to help as many people as we can to use the products that they've got in their hands so they can free up their time, be more efficient at what they do. And when they do that, they feel more comfortable at their job and they can succeed and they can move further and they can actually be far more productive and far more energetic about coming to work and using the tools they have. Down the bottom there's an email, so if you want to email services@ingrammicro.com, they can also point you in our direction as well. So look, thanks so much for your time this morning. I really hope that you got a couple of things out of that you can take away. There's so much more to Teams. I could probably spend another 3 or 4 hours with you because I think it is a cool tool. I think it ticks every single box. But I think for a communication, collaboration, and people management, file management tool that's around. So thanks so much for that. Any questions there, George?
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, quick question is, if a site's created within SharePoint, can it be linked to a Teams?
Yes, it can. Yep. So they've just updated that. And also SharePoint com sites will now run inside Teams using Viva. So it actually brings board in. It looks really cool. It's a really good application.
Yeah, it looks like that SharePoint and even OneDrive will become sort of a back end to Teams, and Teams will be the main front end for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you can build your SharePoint site first, and then down the bottom it says, do you want to link to a team? Go bang, and it just builds the team out from there.
Yeah. Thanks very much for the presentation, Adrian. I don't think we realise how important it is to, when you implement new technology with a customer, how important it is to get the change management and training right. So your services are really valuable. All right, great. Thank you. We've got Jordan up next, so Jordan will begin sharing shortly. Jordan comes from Jabra. He's the channel distribution manager for Jabra, and we've got him talking briefly on the Jabra Teams certified handsets. So we should hand over to Jordan now.
Hi guys, thanks for the introduction, George. As he said, I am the channel account manager, distribution manager looking after our distributors in Australia. I'm based in Sydney, and I wanted to talk to you guys a bit about how we work with Teams and also just a little bit about what we do and why we do what we do. So if you don't know, Jabra is a professional headsets and audio company. We are founded by our parent company, GN, and our sister company specializes in hearing aids. So we have a really, really long-standing history, over a century, or 152 years to be exact, in audio technology. And we consider ourselves a specialists in sound. And that's incidentally our goal. Our goal is to help life sound better and incidentally make life better as a whole, especially in the workplace. So to kick us off, as you can see, and I'm sure most of you are already working from home. This has been the new norm in the past year and a half, where we've had a pleasure of experiencing everything we did in 2020. And whether you like it or not, this is going to be the new norm. People project by 2025. So we've gone a bit more relaxed now these days. We've got some days in the office, some days at home, and according to this graph, one extra day in a third space, be it a cafe or maybe someone else's home, not your own home. And this means that we need to find a way to work flexibly. We need we need a device that can work around us, not us working around the device. And this is even true for offices. I think moving forward, open office spaces will be a thing of the past, and larger rooms, such as large meeting rooms, they have been downsized to make smaller huddle rooms. ANZ Bank are actually doing this at the moment. They have a huge room, or they had a huge room. It was like 7 meters long, and they've just cut it in half or even thirds to make smaller huddle rooms, just to better utilize that space as real estate gets more important, and obviously as social distancing becomes more of a factor. So as you can see here, these stats are taken from 2018 at the latest. So please use your imagination when thinking about what it is like now. We have more noise and interruptions compared to before, 2012, that is, and we spend a lot less time working alone. Gone are the days where you could just sit down at work and sit in your cubicle, be undisturbed for 8 hours and go home. If you are going a single day without at least calling one person or asking one person one question, you're probably in finance or something, but that's not true either, is it? Basically, we are always working together. And although there are a lot of people who don't like working from home, a lot of people, such as myself, or a lot of people do like to have at least one day working remotely where they can spend some time with family and get some stuff done around the house, whatever it may be. Working from home is, simply put, more convenient than going into the office sometimes. And this all the more augments to the fact that we need a device that works around us, right? We need a device that can be with us and we can be confident in that it'll work in no matter where we are. And I quite like this graph here. This basically paints the pain points that we experience pre and post pandemic. So you can see that noise and interruptions have gone down a little because we're obviously not in the office as much. Open office noise isn't much of a problem, but collaboration as a result has become way more increased, and it's a bigger pain point than ever. Before, when we were working in the office, we could just get up and go to the person next to us and talk, but now we have to have a Teams call, we have to have a phone call, email, whatever it may be, we have to reach out remotely. Mobility is a big issue as well, because working from home really means working from anywhere, and that notes the point I made earlier about working in a cafe. You don't exactly have to be at home or in the office. If you've got an internet connection and an electronic device, you can pretty much do your job. And comfort. A lot of people now are working way more than they used to. In the office, you might work your 8 or 9 hours, but now a lot of people are reporting that they have trouble winding down, and some people are actually doing 10, 12, maybe even 14 hours. So comfort is now a big thing. If you're using a device that's uncomfortable for the entire day, it could lead to a lot of fatigue, a lot of headaches. You've all heard of Zoom fatigue. Your comfort definitely contributes to that. So in spite of all these raising problems, we find that 61% of headsets at work are actually not UC certified. What this means is that people are using consumer or retail devices for professional programs. And at Jabra, we have a little analogy that we'd like to use internally. If you're using a premium product such as Teams, for example, let's liken it to a Mercedes, and a consumer headset is like E10 fuel. You wouldn't put E10 fuel in your Mercedes, right? You'd get your premium unleaded 98 or whatever you use. I don't drive a Mercedes, I wouldn't know. But the point is that if you're using a professional software to get the most out of it, you'd want to use professional accessories, or especially a headset. So enter the Evolve 2. That's what I've got on my head now, this big one in the middle, the Evolve 2 85. We've got 4 headsets in this series, and they have been designed with 3 main pillars in mind. Keep in mind that we are, in fact, engineers rather than product manufacturers. All our products are made with purpose. So here are some of the features we have. The busy light, you can see here. I won't spend too much on this because it'll just become death by PowerPoint, death by feature at this point. But hopefully, by me using this headset, it services as a live demo, speaking to the quality and build of the headset. And you can see in the middle here, these are the 3 pillars that I mentioned earlier. We've got collaboration, concentration, and flexibility. Collaboration refers to features that help you collaborate. That would be the microphone. We've got 3 microphones in the microphone. They are OpenOffice certified, Teams certified. That means Teams has approved them to work in noisy environments. And a neat little thing that you can do is tuck this away. When I tuck this up, I'm going to become muted. So you shouldn't have been able to hear anything there. And if you notice as well, it tucks away very discreetly for this headset in particular. Concentration refers to being able to concentrate on your work. As knowledge workers, I'm sure as we all are, if you cannot concentrate and transfer your knowledge, you are not doing your job as fully as you can. So headsets have active noise cancellation, passive noise cancellation. These allow you to stay on track with what you're doing and not be succumbed to the everyday disturbances that we experience. Working at home, this could be, family, siblings, pets, delivery, courier men, heaters, because it's super freezing. Hopefully you can't hear mine. And then lastly, we have flexibility. Again, being able to work anywhere. We've got 36-hour battery life, dual connectivity. You can connect to your mobile and a laptop, 30-meter wireless range, motion sensor, and as well as looking nice. You don't have to feel embarrassed wearing this going out. I sometimes go walking down to the shops with this headset on, or I go to the gym with it because it looks like a retail headset. Yeah, we even consider those things. And of course, we have different color designs if you would so choose. We have the cut in beige as well. And of course, our headsets are all music optimized, so they can be customized in the Jabra Direct or Jabra Sound app. And again, speaks to the flexibility of the headset that you can use both in your professional and personal lives. And of course, our headsets are, as I mentioned before, Microsoft Teams certified. So if you get the MS variant, which stands for Microsoft, the multifunction button will actually be replaced with the Teams button. And what this does is it'll bring up the Teams window according to what you are needing at the time. So if you're getting a call, it'll pick up the call. If you are on hold, it'll resume. If you're on the call currently, it'll end it, etc. And if you're not in a call, it'll bring up your Teams window to show any notifications that you might have. It'll also glow purple as well as red. So red is when you're on a call, but purple is when you have a Teams notification. So it is heavily integrated and built into the client, which means that if you do purchase a Teams certified headset to go with your Teams client, you know that you are safe in the long term. You have a product that will be updating along and evolving along with Teams, and one that won't become obsolete in the next 2 or 3 years at least. And again, yes, that's just another image showing that we are certified with Teams. So in summary, working from home, collaboration, concentration, and flexibility are more important than ever to work remotely and essentially work from anywhere. We are certified with Teams, and Jabra and Microsoft are very strong alliance partners, consistently and constantly working together to bring forward collaboration solutions to better people's lives.
That's great. Thank you, Jordan. Our final speaker for today from BitTitan, Sharon and Pablo are on the call. So Sharon, if you'd like to do a quick introduction for us. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, George. Hi, thanks again for all the partners that's still staying on for this session. We are the last session. So I'm Sharon and I'm based in Singapore. I look after all the distributors across APAC under BitTitan. Well, our next session will help you to bring you to sell more teams and also how to help you in migrating teams to Teams easier. Let me introduce Pablo, one of our senior technical strategists. He will walk you through on BitTitan. Yeah, Pablo, all yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm Pablo Galan, a pre-sales engineer here in BitTitan, and today I'm going to talk about BitTitan's MigrationWiz migration platform for fast, secure, and scalable content migrations from small businesses to enterprise companies. What about BitTitan? We started 11 years ago building software to help IT services providers drive cloud adoption. Today, our industry-leading platform, MigrationWiz helps IT professionals assess, deploy, and manage cloud solutions with greater profitability. We have above 43,000 customers across 187 countries, and to date we have migrated about 19 million of users. What about MigrationWiz? What we do? MigrationWiz powers mail migrations to Microsoft 365 and G Suite, documents migrations to OneDrive, SharePoint, and Google Drive, personal archive migrations to Exchange, Microsoft 365, and Gmail, remote Outlook profile configuration, public folder migration, native hybrid Exchange management, and for today's demo, Microsoft Teams to Microsoft Teams migrations. These migrations are important in the consolidation of two or more business entities during an acquisition or merger that both use Microsoft 365, and also in the divestiture of business entities from a parent company to a new company also using Microsoft 365. In order to migrate from Teams to Teams, from one tenant to another tenant, we need to purchase collaboration licenses. More customers choose MigrationWiz for Teams migrations because we are offering velocity migrations. For example, we can migrate 1,000 teams with 400 gigs in about 24 hours. Our average results are about 500 teams with a half terabyte or 1 terabyte per day. We can migrate teams, we can migrate the channels, the documents, the permissions, the memberships, the private chats, OneNote tabs, and soon Planner. We'll be able to migrate also Planner in a few weeks. We have migrated so far 45,000 teams with more than 190,000 users, 50 terabytes of data in total, and for more than 200 companies. The Teams migration features that we offer will allow better performance and project management, fast and scalable. MigrationWiz is elastic and scales on demand. It's a fully SaaS-based solution. We allow concurrent migration of teams, and we offer Teams velocity migrations. Simple project management. We can easily auto-discover and select the individual teams from MigrationWiz to migrate. We can pre-stage destination teams by creating teams and channels empty, and after that migrate the content. We can see at any time the status, the progress, and the errors for each teams in your project. And we finally offer enterprise-grade security, enhanced security for large-scale projects on migration. We we migrate using application permissions. We don't require store the admin credentials in the projects. We can install authentication apps both in the source and destination tenants and authenticate with those. Before starting the migrations with MigrationWiz, we can leverage another cloud platform of ours, which is Boulier, which offer Microsoft 365 migration toolkits. We can scope the team's migration projects before starting the migrations, and after the migration is completed, validate the migration. So before the migration, we can connect this platform to the source tenant, analyze the full tenant, and scope the team's migration project with assessments that provide usage details and require MigrationWiz license. After that, we can migrate using MigrationWiz, and post-migration, we can run again a tenant assessments with Boulier to validate all the data migrated. This is how these Boulier assessments look like. In a few minutes during the demo, I will go into details. Basically, we'll have different sections. One is for Exchange Online, where we can see mailboxes and archives. Another is for OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online, Microsoft 365 groups, Microsoft Teams, and at the end, all the MigrationWiz licenses required to migrate the entire tenant. Okay, so I'm going to jump to MigrationWiz. The first step to start using MigrationWiz is creating a Bitdatan account from bitdatan.com. We can sign up for an account, it's free. After receiving the confirmation email, you can just click on MigrationWiz and provide the credentials and click on sign in. After that, we'll access the MigrationWiz dashboard. From here, we can start creating a MigrationWiz project for teams to teams from this button, create project. Once we click on this project, we'll see this page. We can select here mailbox project to migrate mailboxes, document project to migrate documents, public folder to migrate Exchange public folders, personal archive project to migrate PSTs or Exchange archive mailboxes. And for us, collaboration project. This is the project type to migrate teams to teams. As I said previously, before starting the migration project, we can launch Boulier, our other platform, to analyze the source Microsoft 365 tenant. From here, we'll be redirected to Boulier. We need to sign up for another account in Boulier. It's also free during the first 30 days. And from the library, we can select Microsoft 365 tenant migration assessment. Once we launch this template for tenant migration assessment, we need to authenticate to the source tenant. We just need to provide authentication codes. These codes will be generated. There will be 4 authentication codes, one for Azure Office 365, another one for Exchange Online, and 2 more for SharePoint. We just click on these links and provide the authentication code. And after that, we log with the source admin credentials. We are not going to store here your admin credentials. We just need these authentication codes. After that, we'll start the analysis of the tenant. It will retrieve all the domains. And in this task, we can customize how we want to analyze the source Microsoft 365 tenant. We can select all domains by default, or if we want to analyze a specific domain, if, for example, the tenant is in multi-geo configuration, we can select here the tenant address that we want to analyze. We can also select a specific SMTP domain for Exchange Online objects, also a specific user principal name domain for OneDrive, SharePoint Online, and Teams objects. After that, we can deselect any of these things if we don't want to include them in the assessment, but by default, we'll be analyzing mailboxes, OneDrive for Business, classic SharePoint Online sites, Microsoft 365 Unified Groups, Microsoft Teams, public folders, and other additional tenant objects that won't be migrated by MigrationWiz, but are very useful to have them in the assessment. We can also specify here an email address, and after clicking on submitting, after a few minutes, we'll receive an email with our assessment. The assessment will look like this. an Excel file with a lot of tabs, with a lot of information. The main tab is the dashboard. In the dashboard, we can see these sections. For today's, we go to Microsoft Teams. Here we can see how many teams we have in the source tenant, how many teams are larger than 100 gigs, additional collaboration licenses. This is because each collaboration license will allow to migrate up to 100 gigs. If we have teams larger than 100 gigs, we need additional collaboration licenses. The total amount of document gigs and the total amount of conversation gigs. If we click on the link, we'll see of the teams with all type of information, team and nickname, team visibility, if the team is archived, creation date, the primary SMTP address, the SharePoint Online URL, how many channels, how many private channels, the members, the owners, the total amount of gigs, documents, the total amount of conversations, etc., etc. We can use this assessment to configure our MigrationWiz projects. Okay, going back to MigrationWiz, now that we have the assessment of the source tenant, we can start creating the MigrationWiz project. We go back here, we select collaboration project, we enter here a project name, teams to teams. We need to create here a customer. The customer is like a container and will be identifying the platform with a primary email domain. I have one already created. After that, I need to create a source endpoint. The endpoint is the connector to the source tenant. I just need to select here a new endpoint. It will be selected Microsoft Teams source. And here I need to add the source credentials. This will be the service account that we are going to use to migrate the teams from the source tenant. We might follow the migration guide when migrating from teams to teams. This is the migration guide that we need to follow. In order to connect to the source and destination tenant, we need to install authentication apps. For the source, we can install a read-only authentication app or a full control authentication app. For the destination, we always need a full control authentication app. In order to install these authentication apps, we just need to click on the links and sign in with the global admin credentials. For the source, for the destination, the global admin account will consent the installation of the authentication app in the source local AD and in the destination local AD. And after that, we go back to MigrationWiz and we enter here the service account that we are going to use to authenticate through that authentication app. I have here one endpoint already created. I go to destination. I need to create another endpoint. This case is for the destination. Once I have installed the destination authentication app, I go back to MigrationWiz. I enter here the service account credentials. I need to select if I want to use the Microsoft provided Azure storage or our own Azure storage. This is a Microsoft API requirement. In order to migrate teams at destination, we need to use an Azure storage where all the data will be ingested first, and from the Azure storage will be automatically moved to the corresponding team. Okay, after creating and selecting the endpoint, I just save the project. Here we'll see that we'll be migrating from source Microsoft Teams at source to Microsoft Teams at destination. We'll be migrating conversations, Teams permissions, documents, and OneNote. Documents permissions will be able to create also the teams and channels at destination, document metadata, document versioning, and OneNote apps. Once we migrate the OneNote files, we'll be able to recreate the OneNote apps. And as I said previously, in a few weeks, we'll be able to migrate the Planner files and also recreate the Planner tabs. I save the project. The next thing I need to do is import the migration line items. Each migration line item will represent a single team migration. I can discover all the teams from the source automatically by clicking on Auto Discover Items. If I click on Auto Discover, it will connect to the source tenant and discover all the teams. Or if I already executed my Boolean tenant assessment, I can go to the assessment, select the team mailing name column, and import here the team mailing names. If I want to migrate to a different team mailing name and destination, I just need to change the destination values. I will click on Save, and I will import the team mailing names. In another project, I have already executed the auto discover because it takes time to analyze the source tenant and retrieve is here. As you can see here, the auto discover process completed. 6 teams were discovered. I can download from here the teams. It will be downloaded to an Excel file, but I can import them automatically into the project. So in a few seconds, I will have all my teams imported. Once I have the teams imported, I need to select them, click on Start. I can verify credentials to make sure the authentication apps were installed successfully, both at source and destination tenants. And after submitting the verified credentials and having all the statuses changed from not submitted to completed verification, I can start the full migration. I just need to select full migration. I start the teams migration with this first option, setting up teams. This will create all the teams and channels empty at destination. And once all the teams and channels are created, we can start with the content migration. I can start, for example, migrating all the documents and OneNote files, also including the metadata and versions. I can also include in this path, for example, conversations, although this is optional. Apply teams permissions. I click on Start, I submit this full migration pass. Once this pass is completed, I can go back, and once OneNote, for example, was completed, I can enable OneNote tabs. We'll be recreating the tabs once the OneNote files were migrated. And finally, for example, I can apply document permissions. So we'll need several full migration passes. The first one to create all the teams and channels, and the next ones to migrate documents, metadata, versions, conversations, and after migrating all the documents and OneNote files, another pass, a final pass to recreate the tabs, and maybe to apply the teams permissions and the documents permissions. And that's it. In a few minutes, we created a Migration Wisp project to migrate teams from a source tenant to a destination tenant.
All right.
Thank you very much, Pablo. This really brings us to the end of our webinar for today. We'd like to thank you all for attending and for our partners for presenting as well. The final webinar in the series will be held at the same time next Wednesday, where we'll be discussing Teams calling services. A recording of these webinars will be available at the end of the third webinar. Really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for attending and have a great day.
Thank you.